Hola, mi gente. Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. This is the place to learn how to run your MSP, whether you're a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and talk about our tips and tricks for this week. And I hope that you had a great first week of 2026. Thus, the title here, week one of 2026 in the books. Few couple tricks or tips and stories. One of them did my first on-site for the year. Those are becoming rare and in between nowadays. This one was because our new technician was going down to a client that wasn't really in our standard setup. They usually had our setup with it being instead of it Microsoft 365 accounts, they had local accounts. Their line of business software was on their server. So there was a little bit of complications on the way that their stuff was set up. And so we had to go down there, had them trained. But one of the items that we had forgot is not having a checklist, because having something that is not standard should have something that is at least we can reference back to, right? And so one of the steps that we skipped was asking, hey, is there any data that's needed on these PCs to be transferred over? Now, normally for this client, there's only one PC, and that's the manager's PC that has all of the data and all the details and things of that nature. However, it did not have one of the staff members had some sticky notes, had a notepad. And so these were files that were on the old PCs that we just didn't transfer. And so it made me remember that, probably should have just ran our software to copy this data. And that software that I'm referring to is Fabs Auto Backup. So for those that don't know what Fabs Auto Backup is, it is a kind of like a migration tool that you can pull the data off and be able to pull in regards to settings, details, down to manual items that you didn't think that you would need to pull on for some of those. So you can find that over at www.fpnet.fr. That is the website. It's about $66 one-time fee, but I mean, it's well worth the amount for that software. And so it kind of got to me in making sure that, hiring new technicians or hiring, having a new technician, subcontractor, et cetera, try and go out to these jobs, you should be equipping them to have some of these things. And so speaking with the CIO over in Houston, we were talking about like what is kind of the standard that was in your tool bag. And so we had a running list that we have, and we've made sure that we equipped her to have that moving forward. So speaking of my CIO, we were actually talking about the other day on a client who has a very old line of business software. And we were looking to see if there's a way for us to pull the database to maybe get it to a developer, someone to kind of convert it over to a live, either on the web, somehow get it to maybe like a access database, something that would be for archival purposes only to save some cost for the client, because upgrading it would be, I don't know, tens of twenties of thousands of dollars. And so there was one company, and I couldn't remember the name of it. And so, my first track is to speak to our good friend John Dubinsky, and so over at formerly of the Maven Group, and he pointed me to the software we used to use quite a bit many years ago. And so that software was called SQL Backup and FTP. So again, it's SQL Backup, and it's spelled out and FTP.com. And what it does is it will pull that FTP, that SQL database. It is free, but there are different tiers. If you want to transfer it to like a OneDrive or to like a Google Drive, things of that nature, you will have to pay the next tier, which is like a $39 fee or something like that. But quite honestly, it's worth the amount for what you would pay for, and as far as the value that you would get as well. The last story I have, which, well, not me, some story, this is going to be the whole podcast, but, so right now, what we do is we have a cloud VPN that connects to a SASE solution. That solution then connects, and then we go ahead and make sure that we don't allow for any open ports on any of our firewalls and our routers and things of that nature. So the product that we're using right now is called ControlOne. And so for some reason, when we got back, I don't know, it was super weird. The agent would keep on reconnecting, it was retrying. updated the agent. I reinstalled the software. I restarted the PC, reset my password. Seemed like it would connect for a little bit, then it would drop. So it was real weird. And so finally, funny enough, I go ahead and I'm checking into I reach out to support, the admitted defeat for every IT technician, right? When you can't figure it out. But this is why I'll go into the story at the end. And we come to find out that we actually had set a custom DNS. And the DNS that we used was the old My Digital Shield DNS. And so the thought process behind this was when we were on the Arachnus equipment, for those that were connecting and going in, we decided to use the same DNS so that we knew if there was an issue, we would go ahead and troubleshoot. So at this time, when we set up the VPN, we actually had the My Digital Shield DNS, and then we had Quad 9. Now we actually just use Quad 9 for a majority of our stuff. And so when we found that out, in support, he's like, man, there's a custom DNS here. Let's go ahead and see if we can set it to auto and see if that fixes it. And sure enough, the moment he hit auto, I was able to connect, goes from there. So 3 stories here. 1, whenever in doubt, it's always DNS, which is the running joke. The second piece of it is don't wait to help, right? Like I spent 3 days trying to figure this out, and then I finally reached out to support when I could have just reached out to support on day 1. And so this is a very important piece to understand that going to support, you're paying for support, right? And you're paying on these subscriptions. So you should use them. And there's rightfully reason why, right? Who knows how much labor I had went ahead and wasted because I went ahead and not decided to try and figure it out on my own because I thought I could figure it out. So something to put in your cap on that side. And then ultimately, again, the other piece to it was, no method is always going to be sound and true. I was pretty heated. I thought it was the VPN. And so, sometimes you got to give yourself a little bit of grace and also the vendor a little bit of grace because everyone makes mistakes. Clearly I did in our standardization across all of our initial stack before. And so now, leading me to there. So shout out to Citricom ControlOne's support for helping me out and trucking along as we got from there. So yeah, we're going to dive into, really the meat of this episode. And really, it's just a catch up, really kind of giving you guys an insight of like what's been going on, insights on both ProdigyTeks and MSP Owners Group, a little bit about TechCon. Things are, again, all crazy since June. So figured this gives an opportunity to kind of catch you up on what's happening right now. And then give an opportunity for all of you listening in to see if you want to chime in, provide us some feedback, or maybe you want to come on as a show guest. Feel free to reach out, info@mspunplugged.com. Excuse me. But the biggest piece for us right now is really the last 6 months have been really a great grind, synergies, understanding what tools we have available to us. And so right now, we're updating our offerings. We're updating our offerings for the first time in about 3 years. And I'm not talking about pricing. I'm talking about our offerings and the way that we offer it. So we have been increasing our pricing as the years kind of went through. But come to find out that, there are some, not only just margins that we were missing, but really bad business decisions on my part. The first part is, we used to include Microsoft 365 Business Premium or Microsoft licensing in the per seat cost. And what we learned over the years is that the cost is bleeding us. We pay about a little over several $1,000s in Microsoft cost. And it turns out that it's not a standard practice for MSPs to include Microsoft in their seats. 2, and so to give some insight, the reason why we did it was because we chose Microsoft as the identity provider versus going with like Jump Cloud or Evo or, Okta or any of those third-party software. We're like, we're just going to core it onto Microsoft. And rather than get an argument from them, rather than paying that fee for the identity provider, we would just absorb the a cost of the Microsoft license for that. Well, back then when, the licenses were like $8, $10, that was fine. But now they're like 22 to $25 a user. And so especially for all the security pieces and things that we're looking to do and stuff like that, we just had to make that shift. We had to make that shift. We had to make that change. And so, starting this month, we're going to start including that in all of our clients' billing, which will help with some of the costs that we were paying for on our open text bill for moving forward on that side. The second change that we're doing is for all of you, for you may know, we organized our plans in the forms of the implementation groups for CSI. I'm sorry, CIS. CIS version 8.1 has 3 implementation groups with the 18 steps. And that's how we kind of like mapped our settings. And it's, IG1, IG2, IG3, implementation group 1, implementation group 2, and it would highlight what steps of them are in each individual group. And so that's how we were doing our flat pricing. Now, what we've gone ahead and done is we have those quote unquote implementation groups, but we've now separated the way that we do our service offering to offer help desk, network, and security. And so those are the 3 avenues of how we're organizing our offerings right now and generating our pricing as we speak. Sorry, I'm a little sniffly, got a cough going on. I just been battling this cough for the past like month and a half. So for those that are listening on the audio, my apologies. I know that's probably annoying, but I'm going to try and power through to get this all for you. But going back to the pricing, we actually have it set where now it's set up to, for a client, hey, service desk and network operations center, meaning we're going to patch everything, we're going to manage all the stuff, we're going to check on uptime and stuff like that, and then security. And so what that's allowed us for is, or I should rephrase, the reason of this is with the help of Manger, who is our legal entity and who we use for our agreements, which everyone should know. Now we have legal protections built in place if a client did not want security or did not want so and so, or hey, the pricing is too much. Okay, cool. Well, what do you want to remove? And then it allows us to really help provide clients the best class in support, but also so that we're not held liable. And so we've been able to really restructure and retool a lot of this, especially going into the new year, as we kind of discussed with our clients. And again, all help with combination of Manger and then our new help desk, who we outsource to, which I hadn't revealed this recently, but we did go with NocDoc, NOCDOC. NocDoc is our outsourced help desk. This is who we're leveraging for our service deliverability. They have been phenomenal, and they truly handle things from literally cradle to grave. And their SLAs are phenomenal. Like, for example, previous teams and companies that I may have mentioned, especially this last one we were just on, the SLAs were terrible. And that was kind of where our clients were having a real hard problem with our services. And for any of our clients that are listening to, we appreciate you sticking with us through that tough time for those 12 months. And so really they helped, that team figured out on how SLAs will work. And what I mean by SLAs is like, how fast are these guys getting to your clients? And I tell you what, NocDoc is, man, they're slick. I mean, if your customer chats with them or gives them a phone call, it's 30-second SLA. They get a hold of somebody in 30 seconds, they answer it, they get a road to their problem, chat, they have a technician jumping in right there to solve their issues. If they submit an email or if they submit it through the portal, it's a 30-minute SLA. So we've been really impressed with those guys over there, Stola team. So again, I implore you, if that's something that is of interest of you, or you're looking for an outsourced help desk, or you're looking to maybe have an augmentation to your business, let me know, and I can make that introduction. There may be some announcements coming out in the end of this month, but it's been a great partner of ours from a ProdigyTeks standpoint for what we're doing. Again, I kind of led into, my day looks a little different now, right? And then for all of you that we, talk and shoot the stuff and really whatever, you get me and I'm one flavor, right? I was just on the podcast with Helped on the Cool Kids Cool Kids Table podcast of theirs. And, I don't know if it's gonna make it into the edit, but I let one slip, and that's just me, right? There's no different from me when I was part-time to trying to figure it out, to having employees, to MSP Unplugged, and now CEO of MSP Owners Group. Uh, you're gonna get me, right? And I'm very transparent in the way that I do, right? And so, again, going from that whole transition and now managing a roll-up entity that helps manage and acquiring other MSPs, again, majority stake. Again, I still run ProdigyTeks as of right now. I am planning to put someone in place to run it in my place, but I am still very much owner in depth of it. Same thing with Chris Cool over at Cool Technology Group. We all have our new roles that we're going to be jumping into, but we very much are still involved in our MSPs right now. And so far, it's been interesting, right? I think what I've learned over the last 6 months and kind of just talking with all these businesses, all these other MSPs that are in there, for you listening in, maybe you're not at the where you want to be, whether that's revenue wise, size wise, etc. We all have the same problems. Literally, we all have the same problems. There may be different scales of it or whatever, but we all have a resource problem, whether it's not enough time, not enough money, or we just don't have enough expanded market share to try and figure it out. No one is better than the other. We all do things differently. You talk to, and I'm going to use Chris again, and I'm hoping to get him on the show here soon. Chris came into the space as a printer copier guy. He will tell you firsthand, he has printer toner in his blood. And he's made a fantastic business and helped educate me on how the whole financing process works and how does device as a service make sense for you as a client or as a MSP. How do you make margin and not rip off your client? How do you do right by your client? How do you make it so that they can get what they need at a fraction of a cost, but yet you still make money too, right? And it's such a phenomenal way of these conversations I've had with all these people. And again, really appreciate my time with Chris as we kind of explore this endeavor as we were the first two to be acquired. Um, and again, as I mentioned, there are different ways to make the money. Not all ways are the right way for you. There's different ways to get to it. And I think the most cool part about it, and I'm just really excited to start really embracing that here coming in the new year, is everyone always asked me like, so what's the difference? Like, where do you see yourself now versus where you are before? And really for me, I kind of said, I now have the ability to help other MSPs more than just with advice, right? And that's kind of been my go-to here. I've been giving you my experiences over the last 10 years. What are the bad things I've done? What are the things not to do? Here's what I have done and it failed for me. So hopefully be learning lessons to share with you, either to A, maybe you want to try it and see if you get a different result, or B, maybe hopefully warned you against something that you weren't unsure of. And then hearing my result may have made you figure out, all right, well, maybe let me try something else. Right. That's always been my hope. Like I've never been the type to say, hey, this is how you do things and this is how you do it to be successful. It's been a whole, hey, this is what I've done. Here's what hasn't worked for me. Here's what's worked for me. Your mileage may vary, and I hope you take that ongoing. But now, being a CEO of MSP Owners Group, I actually have a way to give a lifeline to those that may either need to be scaled, that wants to scale their business. For those that are talking about exit, I can actually talk to them about exit. Like that was something that was never in my mind. And I think for our core audience, we never thought about selling. We thought about, running this until for legacy and making it for family. And I have now the opportunity through the resources with MSP Owners Group and Summit Holdings that owns MSP Owners Group, for someone who wants to scale and maybe they don't want to do it alone, I don't have to just give advice. I can actually tell them, hey, there is probably something I can do to help you out. Maybe if you want to get, if there is an exit or an acquisition strategy, hey, maybe there is something where we can buy a majority stake and you keep, the minority stake in your business, but you won't have to do a traditional exit. And for those that don't know, sometimes when you sell, you just sell 100%, and then you stay on as a role sometimes for a couple years, and then you kind of bolt. And then what ends up happening is, from what I understand in PE, private equity, they'll scale it, and it becomes so much of a bigger entity than whatever you had before. May have not gone the right way of how you would have done it. They may have made some decisions that you probably didn't really like. And then you have the option sometimes to buy back your brand, but they've scaled it to a point where they want more money and they became more profitable with it. Whereas with us, self-funded, so there's no private equity, right? And you get to keep a piece of what you want, and then you can sell off whatever you want when you've scaled, along with what the tools and things that you've put in place. So sorry if that sounds like a pitch, but I just wanted to dive into talking about like how I feel empowered now, where I hear someone struggling, or again, I forgot where I was. There was someone that said, "Hey, if you started an MSP today, would you?" And you know me, I love to take a challenge. I'm like, heck yeah, I'll start one today and I'll figure it out. Now I have the ability to say, yeah, you know what? If you feel like you're at the ground or you're hitting a wall, let's chat. Because if my advice is not good enough, maybe there's a lifeline I can help, and maybe there's something that we can do from that side. So that's been really cool to kind of do as well. Next, Jason Thomas, you're gonna kill me. And much love for you, brother. I haven't talked to you in a while. We need to get in touch. But me and Jason, last year, we started an informal lunch with some local MSPs that were here in Illinois. We met up with a buddy of his that haven't met not too long ago, and since then have met several Illinois MSPs that really want to get together and break bread and shoot the shit and really figure out, how do we get better? What are you guys doing? How can we do certain things? If that's of interest to you, shoot me an email, info at MSP Unplugged. And I will talk to Jason and we will get something going and see if we can get together. We usually meet in Oak Brook or around in that western southwest suburbs, but I'm sure we can go ahead and figure something out. But again, this was really much a brainchild of his. I was able to join in on that. So I'm more than happy to extend that out. I know he is always happy to hear from other Illinois local businesses. So again, if you're in the Chicago area, or in those neighboring suburbs, please hit me up. I'd love to get a hold of a lot of you. Let's talk. Let's break bread. Let's get a lunch going. Again, super simple, nonchalant, not formal. Just willing to just open ear and have a good conversation. So. And then let you know by next episode if Jason chokes me out and tells me, hey, this wasn't something that we wanted to advertise. I'll let you all know that as well. But no, on a serious note, I'm pretty sure it has with him. We love to talk to you. So feel free to reach out and we'll get that going here coming up in the next quarter. Finally, before I kind of like run out, because again, I wanted to make sure I jumped on the horn here very quickly, is TechCon Unplugged. I think this is something that a lot of people have been anxious about. Our community knows when this is happening. What I will tell you is the original TechCon is coming back. At least that's the plan. We do have dates. We do have a location as far as where we're going to be in what city. This will be announced at the end of January. So this is when we make the announcements. Tickets will be available. Again, we're re-envisioning how TechCon Unplugged is going to be. And most importantly, how are we going to go ahead and revamp the way we do MSP Unplugged? I think that there's been a lot of opportunities here that, in my opinion, we have not provided the value to our audience. We owed you a lot of the content of recorded sessions from previous years. Our Patreon has been very stale. I'm in conversations with some great people, and we're going to be really revamping this whole process. Having the ability to have new guests coming on here to kind of highlight what they're going to be talking about, similar to like the Podnuts Daily Days, bringing that value, bringing those tips and tricks to you, and really focusing on having the ability to speak on what's mattering to you. not talking about, everything technology wise or AI wise, but as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, hey, have you figured out how to, create a budget? Have you understood, how do you forecast? How do you build business credit? You know, these are all things that I wish I learned when I was kind of coming up. And so we're going to restore a little bit more of the business entrepreneur operator side of the podcast. I feel like that's been missing for a little bit. And then obviously continue to keep having great guests, great talks, have my co-hosts come back and talk more about what they do and how they're doing in their daily lives, and doing more for the community as well. So all of these and more coming here, and you may see some returning faces as well, in regards to our community efforts as well. So, but yeah, TechCon Unplugged, stay tuned. There is going to be news coming out as well. I honestly think there may be the Eventbrite might be out already, so I have to double check that. But the point is that we're going to have some more information on that. We're going to hopefully get our content committee here to plan some great content for the new year. And stay tuned. We're going to make sure that we bring in you for you tuning in and spending your 30 minutes with us, maybe possibly 45, on being the best value that you have, and return and grow this community back to not only where we were, but also to even further. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and round out the episode here. Appreciate you tuning in on this episode of MSP Unplugged. If you have any questions, any insights, maybe you might have a topic or something you want to hear about, comment. I'm looking at the analytics. Feel free to shoot me an email. Again, info@mspunplugged.com, or go to our website, mspunplugged.com. You can do a submission there. Again, I'd love to hear from you going out from there. I believe as of right now, the next in-person show that we will be is likely going to be Channel Futures in April 13th to the 16th. I will be speaking there. I don't know if there's any sooner events, but if they do come up, I will definitely let you know. But stay tuned. Check out my LinkedIn. It's in the show notes as well, along with all of these other details will be in the show notes along as well. So tune in every week. Catch us on the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button so that you can be notified whenever a new episode is available. And you can also take us with you on the go on your favorite podcatcher app. Excuse me. Feel free to go over to mspunplugged.com. You'll notice all of our podcatcher icons that are there. Pick your favorite, and we'll be there to accompany you on that drive, on that walk. And most importantly, we just love that you take us with you on your day-to-days if we have the opportunity to do so. So with that, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.